Hello. Welcome back to FS201 on Monday. I hope everybody had a good, safe weekend, getting more nested and settled in. Um, starting with a few announcements, Quizam 10, which opened on Friday, is due Wednesday, April 1st by 11:59 p.m. You do have a Packback question and two responses due this Friday. And then Quizam 11 is going to open on Friday, April 4th, this Friday, and is due Wednesday, April 8th. We are counting down the semester, so we have 1 month of classes left, essentially, before we get into finals. And it's at this point that I typically like to start talking to you about the final exam, and the structure of it, just so everybody gets in that mindset and they understand all the requirements of that final exam and what needs to happen for it to be due on Wednesday, April 29th. So this is structured very much like your Quizams. It is online, it is cumulative, and it is 30% of your grade. So it's a big portion of your grade. Be sure that you get it done. One important thing to note about this is there are no extensions for this, okay? So make sure that you don't wait till the last minute to do this exam. Don't wait until Wednesday at noon to really get started on it. Because if you have technical problems, I cannot extend this exam. That is not a reason to extend this exam. The exam is open from Friday, April 24th until Wednesday, April 29th at 11:59 p.m. Be sure that you have got it taken care of. I would advise even try to make your deadline for yourself on Tuesday, April 28th. So in case that you do have any technical difficulties, we can take care of that the next day if there's any problems. If you contact me on Wednesday and say your computer's crashed or your internet is out, I'm going to be less understanding about that because you have had 5 days to do this, okay? Especially in these times that we're in, where we're all at home and we're all working from home, the likelihood of having technical difficulties is increased. So make sure, I cannot stress that enough, that you are doing this exam early on in this 5-day window. So if there are technical problems, we can take care of it and you can still get that exam done. We have some pretty big leeways in almost all of our assignments here. And so this strict deadline is one of the few things that is extremely strict within this class framework. The exam time will be 6 hours. You'll get 3 attempts at the exams, just like we have for all the Quizams previously. They do build on each other. And it's about twice as long as your normal Quizam. So take about the time that it takes you to take a normal Quizam and double it and give yourself a little bit more, since we are talking about an entire semester's worth of material. The question types are just like you've seen before: fill in the blank, multiple choice, matching types of questions. And then you can take, of course, this final anywhere, and then this question becomes all the more ironic. Can I take the final at home? Yes, please. Don't take it anywhere else. You're supposed to be at home. So take it at home, be comfortable, have snacks, do whatever you need to do to get this exam done. So again, that exam opens on Friday, April 24th, closes on April 29th at 11:59 p.m. If you have questions about the structure of this exam, please feel free to put them on the Q&A forum. I am sure you are not the only one that has a question. We'll address it there. All right, so last time on Friday, we finished up with bacteriophages. Now remember that these are actually viruses that make bacteria sick. Yes, bacteria can get sick. They can get a virus as well. So these viruses come in and infect the bacteria. They are all over the place in the environment, just like bacteria are all over the place in the environment. So are these things. Specific bacteriophages do attack specific bacteria. So it's not just any old bacteriophage can attack any old bacteria. They are specifically linked to each other. And so really the start of understanding that these bacteriophages existed, these viruses for bacteria existed, was when we started having problems with fermented foods. So it started out that these very large yogurt manufacturers would have a 3,000 gallon batch of milk that they were going to make into yogurt. This is a lot of money. This is a lot of product, right? And so they would put the starter culture in there, and that's the bacteria that ferments, that consumes the lactose in the milk and produces acid and creates yogurt. They would put that starter culture in there, and the vat would never produce yogurt. The milk would not sour. What in the world was happening? And so they would have to get rid of this entire 3,000-gallon vat of milk. It was a big waste of food, and it was a financial expense that did not need to happen. And so scientists began to look at what is happening. Why is this yogurt not being formed? And what they found were the bacteria were dying before they could even grow in this fermented food batch, right? And so then they eventually narrowed it down that it was these bacteriophages that were causing the problem. They were causing the universal death of these bacteria and then preventing yogurt from being made. So how do we cure these sick bacteria and save the cheese or the yogurt from not being made? And there's a couple of ways that this is done now. Now, cleanliness and sanitation is even at a higher level than it was previously. It was previously at a high level. Now it's even more so. Once they figured out that these viruses could be eliminated from the area that they were processing just by some simple sanitation steps, that's what they did. So these sanitation steps take out that bacteriophage and keep nice, healthy bacteria in our yogurt or cheese so that we can go ahead and make that particular product and not lose all of that initial ingredient. You can also prevent the bacteriophages from attaching to the bacteria. So I was talking to a student this morning that's in 201, and she was saying she was reading up about different blood types and how coronavirus seems to not be attaching very well to type O blood types because of proteins on the exterior of that virus. So this is really interesting that the bacteria itself and its structure on the outside, we can make it very unfriendly to bacteriophages. And so if we can prevent that attachment of the bacteriophage to the bacteria initially, we can prevent the bacteria from getting sick. The third way that this problem was addressed was using CRISPR. And you may have heard of CRISPR. This has been in the news in the past 5 years. And it continues to be. This is a huge area of research. We have one of our departmental faculty members, Rodolphe Berengu, who studies CRISPR not only in food products, but also in things like Fraser fir Christmas trees. So this technology is being applied throughout numerous different disciplines and curriculum in order to fix problems. So what is CRISPR? CRISPR stands for Clustered Regularly Interspaced Short Palindromic Repeats, right? So what this is talking about specifically is snippets of genetic material that are having the same pattern of genes repeated, okay? So, and they're regularly interspersed in the bacteria, and for a long time, scientists didn't understand what all this gobbledygook was in between the important coding for specific genes. So they didn't know what that information was for. And it turns out a scientist noticed that, hey, this is repeating over and over and over, this particular sequence. And so they noticed some order to that and figured out that this was actually the bacteria is kind of giving itself a vaccination for the bacteriophage. Right? So we put part of that genetic code from the bacteriophage into its genetic sequencing. And then when the bacteriophage tried to invade the cell, it would say, oh, I know you, you're a bad guy, and get rid of it. So antibodies against, in essence, this is an analogy, right? In essence, for bacteria. So CRISPR, what it does is it takes this specific enzyme, Cas9, and it inserts a snippet of genetic material from the bacteriophage into the sequence of the bacteria's gene, right? And this prevents infection. So this type of technology is used to modify the organism and then keep it safe so that it doesn't die when this bacteriophage comes along. So you may have heard in the news, I think it was 2 years ago, about the CRISPR baby scandal. This was an instance of a doctor or scientist in China using CRISPR to edit the human genome and then using that edit in order to create an embryo. So there were many different issues with this, but part of the issue is although CRISPR works great for things like preventing fermentations from going bad, we have a long way to go before we can use it effectively in human beings. Part of the problem is that CRISPR is not as specifically targeted as it needs to be used in humans. So it can do unintended mutations to the genetic code. And this is something we would definitely like to prevent for humans. We need to make sure we have all those kinks worked out of the system before we start applying it to genetic modification to prevent illnesses such as cancer. In this particular, the CRISPR baby scandal in China was in order to prevent HIV. So the other part of that conversation is, yes, we know that it is not specific enough and that there are unintended mutations, but how many mutations are okay? How much error are we going to allow in this system? Obviously, it'll be very difficult to get it down to zero errors in the system, but how many are too many? Are there specific ones that we want to prevent, that we can control for CRISPR? So all of these things need to be discussed and worked out. And of course, there's numerous ethical considerations that go into this, this proposition of human genome editing using CRISPR. It does have tremendous potential, though, medically. And all of this started with fermentation of foods. So it's very ironic and interesting to me that this was very financially motivated, as a lot of times these new discoveries are, and that it started in food science. Food science is where CRISPR was really applied for the first time with great success. We can also use CRISPR to do a couple of other things that help prevent us from getting sick. So as you know, we can get sick from bacteria. There's pathogenic organisms that grow in our food, unfortunately, if we don't take certain steps to make sure that they don't. So we could use bacteriophages in order to infect those pathogenic bacteria. So if we target the pathogenic bacteria and we use a bacteriophage and we use that bacteriophage to insert a fluorescent gene inside of it, so when it attacks the bacteria, it makes that bacteria glow because it's putting that fluorescent gene, the bacteriophage is inserting that fluorescent gene into the pathogen. So then it makes it very easy for us to detect when that bacteria is there, when that pathogenic organism is present in our food. We can use a fluorescent light and monitor that particular spectra of feedback from that fluorescent light. And then if that spectra is there, it will tell us the number of pathogenic organisms that are there, the concentration. So there is much work being used in order to sort of hijack this bacteriophage and use it for our own good to protect ourselves from getting ill. So we've talked about all kinds of different organisms that can make us sick, from something like bacteria all the way down to something quite tiny like a virus, a protozoa, and even just random little snippets of amino acids that cause misfolding of proteins called prions. So we've talked about all of these different things. There's a lot of dangers out there. And so we have to really be cognizant of cleanliness, sanitation, maintaining the proper temperatures, what the growing conditions of these things are, where they like to be. All of those things are important to understand when we're talking about making sure that we're preventing foodborne illness. We can even use some of these problems for bacteria, like bacteriophages, to defend ourselves against these particular bacteria that make us sick. So when we think about all of these things that could possibly make us sick, there's lots of logistics involved in keeping us safe. So the food supply and making sure that it's safe and making sure that we have control over it in order to be able to recall it when it's not safe and it's already gone out in the processing facility's doors, becomes even more important. So how are we tracking the ingredients, the product itself, where it's going, what store it's going to, if it's going to, say, a larger restaurant chain, where is it in the process, what particular restaurant is it at? Tracking is growing in importance, and making sure that we can easily access that information, which is a huge sum of information when we think about products like a cereal that has 20 different ingredients. That's a lot of information. So how we manage that information is growing in importance. We've developed new packaging, new types of processing, like high pressure processing, that can help decrease the likelihood of these things making us sick. And finally, we're down to some very small changes in genetic code that can help us defend ourselves and the bacteria against getting ill using CRISPR. So understanding what makes us sick is really important in understanding how to prevent it. So now we're going to shift gears. We've talked a lot about food safety. Now we're going to start getting into a little bit of food law. And we're going to start with food packaging. Whether you realize it or not, there is a lot of food law that regulates what is on the package of food. So let's start from the beginning and see what we have in these packages. So there's some basic functions with packaging that we need to understand in order to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. The number one purpose of packaging is to preserve and protect that product. When we think about things like this can of refried beans or pineapple or tuna or soup, all of these cans are shelf stable. We've preserved them for a long period of time. They're very protected. As long as that can remains undamaged, they're very protected from obtaining a foodborne pathogen and making us sick. Now, when we think about maybe these onions or these potatoes or this loaf of bread, this baguette here in the back, they're not quite as protected. But they're more protected in this packaging than they would be just laying on the shelf. All right, so these are shorter shelf life naturally. So we use packaging to preserve and protect a product, but we also use it in the case of these potatoes and onions. We also use it to move a lot of product from one place to the next. These bags contain the product and keep it fresh longer. You notice this bag, it has holes in it. This bag does not have all that mesh, and so helps contain moisture a little bit better. This box, you can even think of this box as a container to move more product at one time. All of these products in this box are very colorful. They catch your eye. They tell you what's in the can. So identifying what is inside that food package is very important. But it also catches your eye so that you're more likely to buy it. Marketing, right? So now we have something that we're super interested in looking at even further and into more detail because the marketing has caught our eye. So let's examine these different layers. The first one is preservation. There's many ways that food can spoil. We've talked about a lot of these. If light gets into the product or oxygen gets into the product, oxidation is a possibility. Now, this is a possibility for changing the color of the food and changing the flavor and texture of the food. Lipids are prone to oxidation, and this can make something go rancid. So if we can keep light and oxygen out of a product that is prone to these types of degradation, we're doing even better. And that is definitely part of packaging. We can keep moisture in or out. We might want to make sure that we don't have moisture leaving the system and dehydration occurs and it changes the product's texture totally. We don't want something to absorb moisture, right? We have something that has a high sugar content, it might absorb moisture, and now we've changed the texture entirely, and we might have compromised the safety of this product because now microbes might be able to grow. We need to make sure that the product packaging might be able to be heated. or it keeps the product cold. And we need to make sure that microbes are excluded from this product. Microbes that we don't want in this product are excluded. All of these factors can be controlled using packaging. We can have packaging that keeps light, oxygen, and moisture out of a package, right? Just because of the materials that go into creating it. You can use opaque paper, you can use aluminum foil to keep the light out, and different types of plastics have oxygen barrier properties as well as moisture barrier. So preservation is the number one goal here. Containment is the second goal. We want to make these things easier to transport. If you went into the grocery store and had to carry every single thing that you wanted to have out of the store in your hands, that wouldn't be very useful. So they provide you with a cart. The same thing can be said of moving product from a production facility to a distribution facility like the grocery store. We have large pallets of product that come in. And then you dive down into that pallet and you'll see that maybe you have boxes on that pallet. And within each box, there is a box of product. Think about cereal. There may be a box of 24 packages of cereal, and a pallet can contain 48 boxes of that cereal. So there's different levels of packaging and containment. Now, the pallet doesn't need to have all the labeling on it, right? Just the unit that is going to the consumer, and that's called primary packaging. So one box of cereal or one box of tomatoes has the label on it, right? That's the part that consumer sees and touches and feels and gets information from. Secondary packaging would be the box that contains 24 boxes of cereal, right? So there's definitely some labeling in there, but you're not going to get ingredient information and nutrition information. That's secondary packaging. And then tertiary is going to be those large pallets that have 48 boxes on it, right? So there's different levels of packaging that are important when moving product from point A to point B, and they have different functions, but they all function to contain your food product. Now, the primary consumer packaging is going to communicate product information. What is in that box or that can? How much is in there? And where did it come from? Who made it? What is in it? I need to know the specifics of what is in it. And if I'm allergic to something, then I really need to know the specifics of what's in it. So there are now allergen content rules and laws about packaging as well. So the package of a particular food gives all of this vital information, but it also has a lot to do with marketing, right? I think about this oftentimes, especially with kid packaging, like products that are targeted toward children. This says kid tested. Sometimes you can see the latest character on there, right? We just went through a craze with Elsa in Frozen 2 as it came out. So having that particular information or that character on there really grabs the attention of the market that is targeted toward. So marketing is important here as well as this essential information. I did want to show you this particular company. This company is called Sealed Air, and it's a relatively local company. It's down in Charlotte. They've been around for a really long time. We've had alumni from here, from NC State, alumni in the food science department, go and work for Sealed Air, which makes food packaging. So this company initially started out making bubble wrap. That was their initial product idea and where the company started. The initial concept was that they could use this bubble wrap as wallpaper and provide some interesting texture for the wall. But quickly they found that they didn't have a whole lot of takers for this particular product. But they did notice that it was really great when you start thinking about packaging something. All the little air bubbles really did protect things well. And so from that very novel idea and pivot to repurpose as a packaging material, Sealed Air has moved on to do lots of different types of packaging. This particular product, let me see if I can get over to here. Yep. So this particular product that I wanted to show you is about sealing in a meat product. So you may have seen the vacuum sealed skin packaging where you have 3 chicken breasts and it's in a plastic tray, but instead of just an overlay of plastic, the plastic is sealed down onto the meat, providing very little air within that package. That's a product that was developed by Sealed Air. And they have an article here that really illustrates how packaging can preserve your food and actually make you a higher amount of profit in the end. So this particular company was a pork manufacturer in Australia, and their initial product, before they had this vacuum skin packaging here, their initial product was only delivered to this small area of Australia. And this was because their shelf life was rather short. They only had about a 14-day shelf life. By switching over to this vacuum skin packaging, now the shelf life was extended by a week or two. And so now they can ship their product all over Australia, and it still has time to be in the grocery store before purchase, and then have time at home before it would go bad in the person's refrigerator. So they saw over a year of using this vacuum skin packaging, they saw an 84% improvement in their sales. So packaging not only prevented food waste in this case, right? So it decreased the amount of product that was being thrown out because it was just going bad before it could be purchased or consumed. And then it also increased their profit. This decreased their cost. So if you are transporting product and then it gets thrown out, this takes more energy to produce the product, more fossil fuels to transport the product from point A to point B. So there's so many factors in packaging that can help with so many other aspects of having a profitable business. And this is just one of them. So a good example there of using packaging to improve your product bottom line and shelf life. So let's dig in a little bit to this label. As I said before, this label has a lot of food law behind it. So it takes 3 different agencies to regulate the label of a particular package. The Food and Drug Administration, the Federal Trade Commission, and the United States Department of Agriculture. So the FDA regulates most of food except for animal products, and it regulates the information and health claims on a label. So the nutrition or supplemental facts and health claims, that's what the FDA is taking care of. You have to actually have substantial data, scientific data that shows significant difference using your product to make a health claim. This isn't just something that you can slap on the package willy-nilly as a marketing ploy. There has to be actual clinical trial behind it to make health claims. The Federal Trade Commission is all about the design of the package and how information is being communicated. So we don't think too much about this, but the Federal Trade Commission regulates font size, how things are designed. It wants to make sure that the information that is required by law to be on that package is clear and clearly available to the consumer. That the name of the product that doesn't tell you a whole lot about it isn't obscuring what it actually is, right? So this is very important. The amount that's in a giant box is very small. The amount isn't very tiny font down in the corner. We want to make sure that's of a certain size and easily legible. And the last part of this is the USDA, or United States Department of Agriculture. They regulate organic labeling. So this is a different layer of labeling that came on in the past 20 to 30 years, and they are solely responsible for that organic label portion and the laws regulating it. So let's look at a package. A while back, I heard a missionary speak, and they told a story of a refugee coming to the United States, very excited to be in the United States, and going to a grocery store, which was kind of a novel concept to them. So they went to the grocery store, didn't really know a whole lot of English. So imagine that you can't really understand what's on a particular package because you can't read it. You don't know what it says. And so you get to this product. What would you think is in this product? If you were just looking at this and didn't look at the words and you had no idea what Crisco as a product was, you might think that this contains cherry pie or something to a kit that you would make a cherry pie with. For those of you who don't know, Crisco is shortening. So you would get this home and open it up, and it is a tub of white fat. That's all it is. Now, this is great if you're going to make a pie crust, which is exactly why this is on there. And so the story went that the refugee went to the grocery store, came home with this particular product, and opened it up to a big shock that this was a tub of white fat and not cherry pie. So packaging information is important to understand, and it tells us a lot about the product. So let's consider this particular product, Cheerios cereal. I'm sure most of you have had this. If you haven't, these are our little round donuts of cereal. And when we look at this particular box, there's a lot of information on there. This is the front panel and the side and a portion of the back. So we'll zoom into this front panel first. You have to tell a consumer how much is in this package. And that's exactly what's happening here. So it says net weight, 14 ounces. So the weight of 14 ounces is not the box and the packaging. The weight of that is the product contained inside that packaging. You have to tell the consumer what your product is. Now, that being said, Cheerios really isn't that descriptive of a product. A lot of us understand and know what Cheerios is because we've had them before. But you'll notice that every product here has on it what exactly it is, a good description of the product contained within. Toasted whole grain oat cereal. So it tells you that you're going to have a toasted flavor, that you're getting all of the grains, this isn't highly processed, and it's made out of oats. The next panel of information is this nutritional panel. Now this is highly regulated by the FDA, exactly how things are expressed, the fonts, what's bold, what's not, what can be on this descriptive panel. Because this is a cereal box and it is geared toward smaller children, you may see different lines here with the product. Now this product tells you the cereal, but it also tells you a serving of the cereal with skim milk, what the nutritional breakdown of that is. And it also tells you the daily value. So a general daily value as given by the U.S. government, by the FDA, says that an average adult eats this many or should eat this many calories, and here's how they're broken down by different macronutrients. So what percentage does this cereal provide in a given serving of those daily nutrients? That's on there as well. It tells you the serving size up here, how many servings are going to be in this container. All of this information is regulated by the government. This particular cereal also has a health claim on it. This health claim was proven through clinical trials that oat material can lower your cholesterol, and so that's allowed to be on there as well. It gives you allergen information. So this product does not have any gluten in it. And this is important. There's a whole list of allergens that we'll talk about in just a little while about what which of these needs to be labeled. So if we look over here to what would be on the back of the package or the side panel, an ingredient statement is very important here. This tells you which ingredients are in there. So this starts with the one that is the most concentrated, whole grain oats, and decreases in concentration as we move down the list, with vitamin E being in there as the lowest concentration of contents. It also gives you vitamins and minerals. This cereal is fortified, meaning that vitamin and minerals are added to it over and above what is naturally present. So that's listed as well. Also mandated by the FDA. This particular panel here tells you exactly who made it and how to get into contact with them, as well as a little extra allergen information there too. So all of these things, all these different components, whether it is the description of what this product is, the actual product name, ingredient statement, health claims, all of these things are actually regulated by the government. It's what can be put on your package. There's lots of legal claims as well. People may be targeting a specific group of folks, like say people who have had a coronary heart disease. They want to make sure they are eating a lower fat diet or a lower saturated fat diet. And so all of these different words that we see here can be used, but there's a legal definition for them. So sugar-free, you can't have any added sugars into this product. Low, extra lean, light, reduced. All of these things mean something to you. So if you see reduced fat potato chips, how much is it reduced? Those things are legally regulated. Reduced sodium, it has to be a percentage less than the original product. Okay, so anything where we're looking at decreasing amounts of a specific component, we're really talking about decreasing by a specific percentage that's regulated by law. And each of these words has that legal definition associated with it. A good source of, so think about something that says a good source of protein. How much does that mean? That's legally regulated. Organic, definitely legally regulated, and we'll talk about that more here. Clinically proven to, has to have clinical trials behind it. So every single word on this slide has some type of legal definition. All right, so with that organic definition, there's a lot more that goes into it than just saying there was organic ingredients. And what does organic mean? So when this first started, people were using the word organic with no legal definition behind it. And then the government got involved and said, well, not everybody is maintaining the same standard of organic practices. So we need to make sure that there are some standards in place here to measure up against, so that when something is labeled as organic, we as a consumer understand what that actually is. And there's actually many different levels to this. So let's get into it. It can be that something's just carbon-based. That's usually not what people are thinking of when we talk about food samples. Organic can be USDA certified. Remember, we have the FDA, the FTC, and the USDA. USDA is solely responsible for organic certification. And the very highest level of organic products are what we're going to call organic hardcore. Okay, so they follow all the rules. So this is the definition of organic foods as set forth by the USDA. It's quite long, right? There's a lot of different levels and rules within this particular paragraph. So let's highlight some here. So when we're talking about organic meat, poultry, eggs, and dairy products from animals, these are all animal products with which the USDA specifies. If it is an organic product, it cannot have antibiotics or growth hormones used in the farming or raising of these particular animals that are giving us these products. So no antibiotics, no growth hormones. When we talk about organic food as a general topic, not just as related to animals, we start getting into what type of farming practices are we using on these particular products. And this gets into what's applied to these products. So we cannot use, if we are certified organic, we cannot use conventional pesticides. So anything that is going to kill off particular bugs and organisms, pests, insects, cannot be used on there if it is most of the time conventional. There is an approved list of pesticides that can be used. Typically, they have to be used in greater quantity than some of these other more conventional pesticides, because the conventional pesticides have been purified or synthesized to be in higher concentration. So we cannot use most of those conventional pesticides. For fertilizers, it's very much the same type of thing. We can't use synthetic ingredients, so we can't use things that have been purified down. We can't use sewage sludge as a fertilizer as well. Obviously, we might have some bacterial concerns around that and foodborne illness. So we can't use those types of ingredients to make a particular fertilizer. Things like compost and sterilized manure are fine though. We can't use products that have been bioengineered. So no CRISPR here, folks. And we can't use things that involve ionizing radiation. So if this radiation is being used to kill off weed seeds or things like that, we can't be using that. So that's sort of all the big list of things we can and cannot use with these particular organic products. The last step in being an organic product is being certified by a USDA inspector. So this cannot be a third-party inspector. It has to be, it can be, but it has to be a government-approved certifier that inspects the farm and where the food is grown to make sure that the farmer is following the rules of this organic standards. The same thing is true for people that are handling or processing the organic food before it goes to the restaurant or supermarket. Has to be certified by a government-approved certifier. So they come in and they inspect the facility and making sure that these rules that we've stated previously are being followed. So the organic definition has many different levels. No antibiotics, no growth hormones, no herbicides, no only natural pesticides, sort of. You're still killing the bugs, understand that. So the natural pesticides that are applied are still ones that are going to be killing the bugs, right? So they have some of the same activities, and they're actually having to apply more of them. So it gets a little bit interesting to think about what makes a natural pesticide better than a synthetic pesticide. And if you're curious about that, I would advise you to read up, really delve down in and understand what makes a natural pesticide, what's considered a natural pesticide by the USDA, and natural fertilizers too. Dig down into that information so that you have the correct information to make a critical decision about whether organic food is worth the extra expense that it normally is. And then the last step of this definition is being certified by the USDA. So you go to the store, all these different products on the shelf. How do you know that it's organic? What does the label need to say to convey that all of these different rules have been followed? So is it just that the ingredients say, oh, each one of these is organic? Or if it has this USDA organic seal, then it's way to go, right? So what's organic? How do we know? If you look at these different cereal boxes, here we have just a plain old cereal box, not a whole lot of information on it. Here we have a cereal that says made with organic, blah, blah, blah. A couple of different ingredients listed there. Organic cereal, there's a USDA code, and then here's our hardcore organic. 100% organic, we have a USDA code. So this is going to be 100% of the ingredients are organic that went into making this process. The farm was certified. We didn't use any of the things we weren't supposed to use. As you move to the right here, you start to see less and less and less of this product. Finally, none of it having organic in the ingredients. So no organic ingredients here. We have a few organic ingredients here, and then even more here because we have this USDA seal. So when we're thinking about that scheme of things, you can have organic ingredients in a product, but not have the USDA seal. So what that means is that if it's made with organic, has organic in the label without the seal, 70% of those ingredients are going to be USDA certified organic, right? None of these things that have organic in the label will have GMOs, genetically modified organisms, so none of those can be used. But if it just has organic ingredients, no seal, there's no specific amount of those ingredients that needs to be certified as organic. It can have just 1%, 2%, 5%. So this is going to be your least satisfying to those organic, 100% organic standards. Here with Made with This Organic, we do have a certification that is required for these 70% of the ingredients or less that are there, or at least 70%, 70% or more. But the seal is not allowed. Here we have the seal, so 95% of the ingredients are certified organic. Now, where this comes into play is things like enzymes that are exempt, bacteria that are used, say for an organic yogurt product. That percentage is opted out of. So we don't have any GMOs. There may be some non-organic ingredients that comply with the ingredient list, and everything is certified. When we're here at the 100% certified organic, we have that USDA seal. All the ingredients are certified organic ingredients and processing aids. So anything that goes into that product and making that product is going to be organic. So as you look at products in the store, think about where they fall on the scheme of things. All right, so if we think here, 100% organic, all organic ingredients certified. 95, if this is organic ingredients and it's got a seal, 95% of those ingredients are there. If it doesn't have the seal and it just labels organic ingredients listed, then at least 70% of them have to be organic, okay? So that's where we are. So let's look at this box of cereal and think about where that fits in to our organic labeling. We do have the seal down here at the bottom, right? So score on that. That means it's at least 95% there, right? So if we take a look here at our ingredient label, we can see that all of our ingredients are labeled as organic. And then we move down here, we see that this product is third-party certified organic by Quality Assurance International. So it tells us, oh, someone has inspected this, and it is organic, all right? So there's lots of information about organic products out there. I encourage you, if this is something you feel strongly about, I encourage you to really inform yourself about what exactly is allowed and what's not allowed with organic products. And hopefully this at least gave you a little cursory view of that. The last thing we want to talk about here are allergens. So if you are somebody or you know somebody with an allergen, especially one that can cause something like anaphylactic shock, where this could actually be life-threatening to them, this labeling law is really important to you. This is a list of the big 8 allergens: milk, eggs, fish, shellfish, peanuts, tree nuts, soy, and wheat. These products or these ingredients are the ones that make up the people who are allergic to them the most. Of all the food allergies, people are allergic to these the most, right? So a good chunk of the population of those folks that have allergies are going to be allergic to this, at least one of the things in this big 8 allergens, and sometimes multiple ones. It's not uncommon to have one allergy and either develop others in life or have multiple allergies to different food products. So if the food contains these ingredients or even ingredients that are derived from them, it must include a statement that says contains tree nuts, whole wheat, or wheat products, soy. And I think now they've changed the law that it doesn't have to say that it's processed in a facility that processes peanuts or tree nuts or wheat. So that doesn't have to be on there anymore, I don't think. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to double check that for you. But these things must be denoted on the label. They can be denoted by making them bold in that ingredient statement, or down, like when we see lecithin on a product, it says lecithin from soy. So has to be labeled. Legal law. All right, so that's a little bit of an introduction into food packaging and food labeling, what we need packages for, and the label that is on that package and what it actually does and conveys by law. So as we move on into this week, we'll start talking about food law a little bit more. So until I see you next time, I hope you have a great few days.